Previously on The Random Couple.
You're worth a lot more than what you think you are. You are the answer. It's never outside. You are the projector of your own world. Your perception of what is and what isn't was passed on to you. Your beliefs shape your reality.
One is never afraid of the unknown. One is afraid of the known coming to an end. Let's establish one thing real quick. I'm not a life coach, nor I'm planning to be. I'm just a student of life, just like we all should be. I've always been very fond of the universe and its creation, fascinated about nature and human behavior. But more than anything, growing up, I was very passionate about soccer. Just a kid with a dream, but I was never close to making it. Why? Talent was there, passion was obviously there, but you know what wasn't there? Mentality, perspective. That's when I realized that what I needed is a new perspective. So I chose diversity. And in that decision, I developed my love for psychology. That led me to what I'm doing right now. So I prefer to always be a student, an observer of life, or perhaps a lantern to the soul. The hope is that through this channel, we can help you find your greatness. And by the way, Alyssa was supposed to be joining me in this video, but she's been really busy with our newborn Maximus. But stay tuned because she has a lot to say to you. So let's all agree that we all have something special. We all have a gift. It's just a matter of finding it. And the key to discovering that inner power is self-awareness. In fact, everything great ever manifested started with self-awareness, started by people who knew who they were. Because if you don't know who you are, your mind will always control you. And the thing about the mind is, it keeps chattering about things we should and shouldn't do. And most of us end up doing nothing. Why? Because you see, the mind has been strategically programmed to keep us in our comfort zone, to keep us trapped, stuck in the rat race, to pull us out of the present moment, which is all there is. Let's face it, most people live in a prison of what other people think. Take a look at the world around you. Most people are out of position, programmed to fit in when they're born to stand out, born to be lions, but most of them are tamed. But hey, a tamed lion is still a lion. So how do we silence the mind? How do you break out of that prison? You see, the mind has been infected with a virus, a program called ego. So to get rid of that virus, to get rid of that program, we go to the root of its creation, to the root of the file, and we delete it. But it's not that simple, because the first step to doing that is to have the self-awareness, to recognize it. So let's shed the light on the nature of who we really are. Now, we emphasized on perspective in our last video, that it's the root of thought. But what is the root of perspective? And where are the thoughts coming from? You see, the illusion is you think you're doing the thinking, when it's just a tape repeating from an old conditioning. Okay, that escalated quickly, I know. Let's pick up the consciousness lens. Okay, let's talk about our newborn Maximus. What is Maximus? He's consciousness. Maximus doesn't know gender, he doesn't know race, he doesn't know religion. All he knows is what his awareness, is what his senses are decoding. He sleeps, he eats, he smiles, he pees and poos like 17 times a minute, and we all pretty much did the same. We all cough, we all sneeze, so let's come from that perspective, the perspective of oneness. Let's just say most of us live our lives embodying a self-image of who we really are, not the self we're born to be. The self-image we're referring to, as we said in our last video, was projected by other people onto us, who created the identity that remained with us since childhood. An identity that was formed by people who probably didn't know who they were either. I'm talking about your caretakers, society, culture, extended family, everything. In other words, who you think you are is simply taken in from those who were your caretakers originally, and culture, and their attitudes toward you, as if their attitudes was somehow the truth about you. An ego structure is then built around those attitudes and projections, which were based on things that your caretakers and culture just hasn't worked out. And then you made a decision to accept those projections and attitudes, or modify them somewhat. You got company. But the thing is, you modified a program that had no business existing in the first place. And you must know that once that ego structure was set in place, your thinking capacity would always begin with those projections and decisions as the basis of your thought. So to get rid of it, we have to go to the root of its creation, to the root of the file, and delete it from the computer, and then you become free. Okay, in case any of that didn't make sense, let's back up a little bit. Remember how we said earlier that the illusion is you think you're doing the thinking? Here's what happens, and I want you to picture it. The thought appears, and you, as consciousness, you identify with the thought. But here's the thing, the language that appears in your mind, that's not you. The language that appears in your mind is an old tape, repeating from an old conditioning. It has nothing to do with the truth of your being, unless the thought is coming from God. But the thought can only come from God if the space has been cleared, or when the space has been cleared from any sense of separation, and when the mind has been silenced. Think of the ego structure as a container, okay, where all the projections and attitudes are stored in. Those attitudes and projections are standby ready to be acted out every time there is a threat to its structure. Or an old tape, like we said earlier, desperately trying to maintain its false existence. That's why the ego must die, because it's not serving us. But let's face it, it's not that simple. You see, the ego will try to fight it in order to stay on the screen. And to stay on the screen, it does everything to pull you out of the consciousness that you are, to pull you out of the present moment, to trap you in the rat race. And the only way to avoid that trap is to build the self-awareness to recognize these thoughts as they appear. That's what soul searching is about, really. And it starts with self-awareness. So recognize the bond of love within you and come back to your soul. At the end of the day, it's really a personal process, and only the bold can endure it. Because let's face it, most people are just not ready for it. They're not ready to be introduced to a whole new side of them that's never been experienced before. A side that contradicts the person they've always known themselves to be. As a result, they begin to doubt the experience itself. They become uncomfortable. And that's when the fear of the unknown kicks in. But that's the ego working there. It creates that fear, desperately trying to maintain itself on the screen. But don't be troubled. Get to know the person you really are, one step at a time, because eventually it will all make sense. Because you already have all the answers. It's just a matter of finding the questions, a matter of being brave enough to turn the gaze inwards and search for them. And don't be disturbed by what anybody thinks, because at the end of the day, it only takes a few to change the many. So let's raise our standards, raise them high enough to meet our higher self in the state of love and harmony, because that's the true power, and it's already in you. It's just a matter of taking ownership of everything that is happening in your life. By doing that, you automatically raise your standards. You see, the thing about the soul is, it has standards so high that the mind can't even contain them. And there's no way to express them through words either, because language itself is limited. So let's look within and release all the negativity. We are all consciousness people. We are all one. Let's learn to operate from the perspective of the whole, of the we and us, not the I and the ego. And realize that the only way to melt that ego structure is by surrendering to the soul and removing any sense of separation. And when you do, you enter into the field of love, abundance, and oneness. If you found anything positive in this video, go ahead and click on the subscribe button because we have a lot more to say and we just don't want you to miss it. And please, feel free to engage with us in the comments below. Let's help each other grow. And if you know somebody who needs to hear this, go ahead and share. As always, love you guys. Salam.